Savvy Business Radio, home to over 500,000 listeners per month, and runs in syndication on 8 AM/FM stations nationwide, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out in a bigger way, call 732-474-7375 or email Christina@savvybusinessradio.com.
Our first guest is Corey Gladwell, speaker, best-selling author, and coach who has built his knowledge of entrepreneurship and the path to enlightenment on a lifetime's experience. After struggling on Section 8 and welfare when he was young, Corey grew an intense desire to succeed. Today he shares his life lessons and wisdom in the topic of entrepreneurship. Find out more about Corey at CoreyGladwell.com. Our second guest is Gary Szenderski. He specializes in helping people and organizations navigate change and frequently speaks and writes on the topic of emerging brands. Today he shares his new book, Zen Zone, Reaching a State of Positive Change. Find out more about Gary at Zenzone, SZENZONE.com. Hi, Corey. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm very happy to have you. I mean, your publicist sent through your newest book that you're working on and some of the things you've accomplished. It's quite impressive. You've written a wonderful new book called In the Human Experience, A Guide to Personal Fulfillment, Meaningful Worth, and Ultimate Awareness. Very important because I think we all have our different ideas of what we've been told will bring us happiness from, winning the lotto. When I win the lotto, all my problems will be over.
Right.
And you kind of went through the story of you actually built quite a successful business, were living very well, and then you kind of crashed and had a very difficult time, and now have built your way back to, being in a space that you're very happy and fulfilled. But it wasn't an easy one-step process. Share a little bit about what prompted you to write your book and how you came to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I grew up on like Section 8 welfare, unemployment. It was hard when I was a child. And so, my kind of programming as a kid was that, not having money was unhappiness. And if you had money, you would be happy. And so, I worked my whole life. I kind of became obsessed with making money. And by the age of 23, I owned a nightclub and a restaurant and a vodka brand. And I had, $1 million businesses. And I thought that's what was going to make me happy, and I was actually empty inside, and I got into partying and drinking and just kind of wasting away because I was so unfulfilled on the inside. And then by 2012, January 2012, I went into meditation, and I actually had a spiritual experience where I connected to the oneness of all life, and just this unconditional love poured out of me. And that, enlightenment kind of lasted for about 3 weeks, where I was just kind of in love with everything and at one with everything. And so after that, I kind of dove right into, meditating every day. At that point, I had nothing. I had lost it all. Some stuff I had sold off. Other things I just lost, like, car, no job, no money. I mean, I was nearly homeless at that point. And so I just turned inward and started meditating and trying to find out what really mattered to me, what was really important in life, and how life was going to look if it wasn't just about the money. And so, I wrote the book as kind of the insights that came to me during the 4 years that I was in deep meditation and what kind of helped me shape a life worth living and true fulfillment. So.
Wow, Corey. This brings to mind for me many, many years ago, I was blessed with the experience after praying deeply after my grandma passed to experience both the experience of being one with God and also in what I would call being in heaven, and the other being without God, the absence of God, which I would call hell.
Yeah.
And the hell was pretty awful, but the heaven was awesome. And I remember going through that thinking, everyone's awesome. I love this. The world rocks. But, as life goes on and the stickiness of everyday small stuff pops up, you begin to lose that love and oneness. And what have you gained as far as an aha of how to keep that going in your everyday existence, even when the small stuff comes up?
Well, it's funny. The thing that helped me the most is actually a business slogan. I don't remember who said it exactly, so I can't quote them exactly. But someone once said that the rent on success is due every day.
Ooh.
And it's funny because that's applied usually to business and, and hustling and making money and all the busy life. But I apply that to my spiritual life as well. And so, the rent on being in the moment is due every day. The rent on love is due every day. And so, I try to meditate daily, usually at night, sometimes in the morning as well. I keep a daily reminder in my phone. So before I start my to-do list of all my tasks and my business ventures and everything, I have a little list of like 5 or 6 items that I go through to get me in a state of gratitude, to get me prepped to receive love, to receive gratefulness, and really prime myself to have a day. So that morning I spend like a little success ritual is what I teach my clients and what I do myself, and really prime myself to have a day looking through the eyes of love and looking through the eyes of gratitude, so I can stay more in that moment.
So those are 2 great practices. One, meditation. The other, I'm hearing gratitude. Throughout the day, is there any other habits that you've kind of gotten into grain that has made you more present?
One thing that helps me a lot is writing. Obviously I'm an author, but, even if you're not an author, you don't want to publish a book or anything like that, you still, I know writing for me, and I try it with my kids and I try it with my family, is writing things out, writing what I'm grateful for, writing my thoughts on paper, and kind of doing a brain dump, and just kind of getting everything out, because it helps clear my mind so I can be more present and in the moment, and not really so distracted. And when I'm with my family, I can really spend time with them, or when I'm at work working, I can really spend time on working, and I'm not distracted by wherever my mind wants to wander at the moment.
That's a really, really good tip, Corey. And I recall for me, I'm not a super great writer. I know it's something that's really hard for me to get pen to paper. Journaling has been totally instrumental for me, but also recording certain things of events that happened to me. One huge event, which I've mentioned on the show before, was such an impact for me. I went out one day in such a hostile mood. Everything seemed gloomy. The world was horrible. Everyone seemed in a bad mood. I kept seeing all these awful fights around me, and I just thought, the world is awful, awful, awful. And then I think midday I said to myself, why am I choosing to see the world from this perspective? I can choose to see the beauty in things. And so I switched my perspective by asking that one question of myself, why am I choosing to see it this way? And by choosing to say, what can I see as far as the beauty in things? And from that point forward, it was probably 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I started to switch my gears and perspective-wise look at things differently, or choose to look at and question where's the beauty. And the rest of the day, so many beautiful opportunities and events and people and love came into my life that was just blew me away, the night and day difference between the beginning part of my day to the end of my day, and realizing that it really was a shift in my choosing a different perspective.
You're absolutely right. And that is exactly what you want to do. Like, there's 3 questions I ask myself every day is, what do I want in my experience? What is it that I want in my experience as far as, emotions and thoughts and interactions? And then the next question I ask is, what is trying to emerge out of me, right? What's trying to come forth through me? And the final question I ask is, why am I creating this? So whenever I have those moments where, like you're saying, when I've seen, these negative things in the world or around me, or people or behaviors or whatever, and then I just think, why am I creating this? If I'm the creator of my life and I'm projecting this onto the world, why am I bringing this into my environment? Why am I bringing this into my experience? And so I think what you just said is beautiful, because it's about that personal responsibility of taking the power back into your hands and having that choice to choose how you see the world, choose how you interact with it, and choose how you go about living day to day in your experience.
Yeah, and what I realized from that experience as well is that, there are certain people who are being in negative energy, but it's kind of like attracts like, and with me being in that space was kind of attracting the people who are also in that space to come on over and join me.
Exactly, yeah.
And
exactly.
yeah, and it's interesting, Corey, because many years ago I was also reading, because my friend wanted to work towards being a criminal profiler, either for the police or the FBI, and so she divulged some of the books she was reading and stuff on criminal profiling, and I found it fascinating, and I thought it's a cool way to understand the dark mind or darkness per se, because we think, really darkness or people who do awful things like serial killer and whatever, that they look a lot different. They'll look like a monster you might see in the street, but often they look just like anyone else. They're people.
Yeah.
So I found it fascinating reading these books, but two fascinating things happened to me during those 3 or 4 weeks I was reading these books, is that I had some dealings with really dark people coming into my life that scared me to death.
Right.
One was in an elevator. This guy who was really not in his sane mind came up to me and said, I like to kill women and do all these awful things.
Wow.
And of course, I won't tell you what he said, all the other stuff, but I'm trapped in an elevator with him going, oh my, how do I get out of here?
Right.
And then the second event was when I was on a date, and this guy was stalking me, and he did not have good intent. I could feel the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself after that evening, why is this coming into my space? These really dark, not good people. And where I realized it was a good idea sometimes to really understand how darkness works, and to get a handle of, okay, what might happen, what's going on in the world, and what might someone who do this sort of thing look like or be like, so that I'm aware walking in the world, but not to get yourself ingrained in it. So
Exactly.
I realized I'm going to put these books down for now.
Yeah, smart move. Yeah, it's so true. And when you absorb yourself in that kind of environment or that kind of information, or you're kind of studying something, you'll see it's like when you want a new car, right? As soon as you decide you want that car, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. And it could have been there before, but it's almost like we do, like you're saying, we attract it, we bring it in there because that's what our perception is focused on. So we're bringing this into our experience over and over again, and it's just not a good thing to do sometimes.
Yeah. What would be your advice? Because I'm thinking, in particular, people in law enforcement and such will have to deal with this sort of thing all the time. How do they keep their space positive when they might have to work with the so-called not good energy and dark people sometimes? How do they not get sucked into the abyss?
Right. Well, I think if you come from a place of love, and personally, if you come from a place of like, and it's something that, other spiritual teachers have said before, but if you really see the world as yourself, right? If you see even the criminals, right? They're a different version of you. They may not be you exactly, but they're all from this one universe, from this one creation, from God, whatever it is that you believe in. It's all one thing. And so when you look at it as a reflection of you, it's like you want to treat them a little bit better. You want to show up a little bit kinder. And when you interact with them like that, then you can understand that you can still be, hesitant and cautious, but you can come up with the thought that they have good intentions, and not predetermined that you have to judge and criticize and critique them, but come from a place of love and understanding. And then, still be cautious and protect yourself, obviously. But I think it's just that mentality that you don't have to be quick to jump to to fire or think something negative or shoot or whatever it is. You don't have to be quick to, not everyone's there to attack you, Yeah.
It's a hard space not to be in that line of work, or even if you're in the armed forces per se.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I'm hoping maybe getting your book will help them stay alert, ready to defend themselves and others, but at the same time protect themselves from getting caught up in the darkness and the abyss themselves. Because I heard that once from one of the books I was reading on profilers. She said, I almost killed myself at one point because I got so into the work that it almost killed me.
Right.
And so it's really hard to get sucked into the negative energy and such. So yeah, you've offered some wonderful advice at the top of the hour. Since you also speak, you coach also with people.
Yeah.
How do you work with people? Like when they come to you, do you start working at where do we need to get more aware in your life? But what does it look like when you work with your clients?
So the first thing I do is I ask them where they're at. Like, where are you at currently, and what is it that you want, right? So I try to figure out their mental map between what their present reality is and what their ideal reality is. And then once I know that difference in the gap between where they are and where they want to be, then I identify what's the number one thing holding them back. And it's not always what they think it is. They'll tell me what they think is holding them back, the thing they need and the thing they want. And usually I come to find out that it's not exactly what they think it is. It's not the time. It's not the money. It's not, it's usually something different that's holding them back. So I listen to what they have to say and their perception of where they're at and why they aren't where they want to be. And then I try to diagnose exactly what we need to do. And there's a few mental shifts that we do initially, and then we go into real world work and action and taking action right away and changing those limiting beliefs. But really implementation and action is the number one thing that we want to work on. So.
And that's really important, Corey, because I was working with this coach who's a good friend of mine as well, and I had thought, okay, my deal 2 years ago, we were working together, is that I need more clients. Yeah, I need more sales. And
Right.
she said, great, let's look at that. So now she works with energy healing and also doing psychoanalysis. So she said, great. So, you think well, not think, but you're from your perspective, your problem is that you need more sales. Let's look at that. Why do you feel that way? She asked a lot of questions, being a great therapist.
Right.
And what we determined after about an hour of speaking together, she said that what keeps coming up for me is that you want to please people. And you're coming from, I want to please, not serve. So pleasing someone comes from your state of mind. You want them to give you something because you want to feel good about yourself. So you're looking
Right.
for acceptance, praise, whatever it is, money. But it's all about you wanting to feel good about yourself and looking for it outside yourself instead of going, how can I really come from a space inside of my heart that's from servitude, and I want to really serve you, not what can I get for myself monetarily or otherwise.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely right, because when you switch that paradigm of giving and receiving, then you really open up the door to a lot more, because a lot of people were limited with if I do this, then I get this, right? That the whole Pavlov's dogs, and you have the little treat and your mouth, and that whole kind of thing is how we're raised, the reward mentality. And so you have to really shift that and really come from a place of being selfless and giving, but being able to receive and not looking for some way to take, but being open to receive. And what I find is a lot of people aren't really ready to receive because there's like responsibility in that. There's a lot of things that we kind of shun off that we don't realize that we're not ready to take in. And so I think there's a lot of mental shifts that have to happen, but usually you can identify with a 20-minute phone call where people are at, and then like she was doing with you, asking a lot of questions, and you can tell, well, wow, I didn't realize I was kind of defeating myself and self-sabotaging myself from getting that because of X, Y, and Z. So.
Yeah. And for me, she had me do a wonderful visual meditation, which is on the show we did together. She actually walked me through it on the interview we did together. And basically, it showed me not only was I having issues with wanting to please people, but behind that original thought was I'm not good enough to receive, which I'm sure a lot of women can relate to. This, oh, no, it's okay. You give them a compliment. You look beautiful. Oh, I'm fat. I gained weight.
Oh, exactly. This shirt's old and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. And you think that's not a big deal. It's just a comment. But that comment also relates to the rest of your life and how you deal and take things or not take things. You're not ready to receive. Your heart is shut that I'm not worthy or whatever. And that translates to all areas of your life.
Oh, absolutely. And I've done that exercise with people before, different clients I've had, where I've forced them to take compliments, like let everyone compliment you and say nothing but thank you. Don't make any excuse. Don't make any kind of rationale about it or explain yourself. Like, just say thank you and actually take that in. Or if someone hands you money, or if someone wants to buy something for you, don't feel like, oh, I can do it myself. I'll take care of accept that. Learn to receive without shame, because a lot of us, especially heart-centered entrepreneurs and different people out there, they don't know how to receive without feeling some kind of shame around it, right? I didn't do I have to do something to deserve this. I have to earn this reward. I have to, I'm not good enough. That's why they're giving to me. And a lot of these different, mindset shifts we have, there's so much shame and guilt around actually receiving that it blocks that flow of receiving. And that's really what universal energy is all about, is giving, but allowing to receive and letting go and not trying to preserve and consume and hoard things, but free flow the energy in and out of yourself and others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I recall many years ago sitting down with a really good friend, and we both had this conversation where we said we don't like takers, the people that in life who just want to take and aren't givers. And we realized it was a funny it was a funny conversation, because we both would always hang out together and go for lunch, and at the end of lunch we would fight about who's going to pay the bill, because both of us wanted to be the giver and not the taker. So we would argue, no, give me the check, no, give me the check.
Right. And no, and you're right. And so, and then what happens is you're not ever allowing yourself to receive, because you're so against perceiving that as being a taker, right? And I used to do that with people that I whenever I used to see men do nothing, and people would do things for them, or they wouldn't show up to work as much, or they wouldn't, provide for their families as much. I would think, oh, you're not doing anything, you're a bum and you're not taking care of everything. And then I realized, so in my mind, I must think that I need to show up and do it 10 times more than anyone else in order to receive that love, in order to receive appreciation, in order to receive respect. I must show up way more than everyone else. And so that was my mindset shift, similar as yours, is that I can learn to just sit, do nothing, and accept fully the love, attention, time, and affection, and income, and money, whatever it is, without having to do anything to deserve that.
Yeah, it's interesting, that whole deserve factor, because what constitutes, the amount of work, aka equaling deserving? I mean, what I became, and you mentioned this just right now, is that, I have to work harder than everyone else. And I would do that. Even in my working corporate environment, I would work, 12, 14 hours. And interestingly, when I didn't get appreciation, because there's that problem with wanting to please people and get that appreciation outside myself, I would feel like, well, what's wrong with them? I work 12 hours. They should want to give me a whole bunch of pats on the back and bonuses and blah, blah, blah. And it really stilts your growth as a person, and when you grow a business, and the growth of your business, when you're trying to always look for that outside yourself, that acceptance and such. So it's fascinating, but it's interesting when you can start asking those core questions. And I think for me, that was the beginning of me starting to address it and get better with it. And now I'm getting much better when someone says, this, that, whatever, you did a great show, or you look beautiful today, saying thank you, instead of trying to offset it. No, not this whole thing.
Right, exactly. Yep. So true.
What was the real prompting for writing your book?
Well, I just kind of, I started, so the spiritual experience happened in January 2012, and I instantly went into like daily meditation, every day, and I still do that for the last 4.5 years. I've meditated every day, but it was July of 2012 that I just, I was in meditation one night, and the thought came that, you need to write a book, and it's going to just write your experience and write your realizations, and and just kind of get it out there. And so that was the first kind of inclination to it. And I started writing, and it just kind of free flowed out. And then it became chapters, and then it became, a full book. And then the human experience name kind of came, and it all kind of unfolded. And so, and it just kind of tiptoed, and it kind of flowed out. And then, kind of how I like to create things. I don't like to ever, like when I manifest or when I like put energy out there, I don't like to say this is exactly how it has to show up, and this is the only way it can show up, because I feel like that's limiting me from a grander vision that the universe might have that I'm not capable to use my imagination for yet. So so I just kind of put it out there, and allowed, this is kind of my intention, and allowed the how to kind of happen. And so, as I meditated, more and more things came, and more realizations that not just helped me, but helped friends and family and clients, and it just kind of built up upon itself. And now it's become, this book and online courses and coaching, and, my second book's coming out in about a month, and all this different stuff just, has slowly unfolded. And so, so that it all came through just the meditations, really, at the very core of it.
And you following that prompting. What was the biggest blessing for me is that throughout building my business, the times in which I accepted the prompting I received through prayer and from God, and some of it was like scary, like no, this is not me, or I'm not ready for this, and I want to just like balk and be like, I'm not doing that, no way.
Right.
But when you follow it and you take that one little baby step, even like you said, when you don't know the how, and that's the scariest part, you don't know the how, so you're like, okay, I should just rest here, wait until I downloaded the whole picture on how to go about this.
Right.
And then it doesn't come, because you have to walk in faith and just take those first steps for the rest of the department,
Yeah, no, and you're right, and that's how God, works, or the universe, or whatever people want to call it. To me, it's all one thing, and it works like a navigation system, right? When you put navigation in Google Maps or Siri or whatever, it doesn't tell you every single turn right at 1 second. It tells you turn left here. Then you turn that left, and then it tells you 2 more miles, turn left or turn right, and it gives you one direction at a time. And that's kind of how life works, right? It gives you one direction at a time, and you just follow that direction. You follow that next step, and then it unfolds more and more, and then at the very end you reach your destination. But you don't really know every step to get there right up front. It kind of guides you as you go, and that's kind of how I feel the universe or God or whatever you want to call it works, and it really unfolds for me little by little, and I just have to take that step in faith, like you're saying, and just kind of believe that the next thing will show up, and do my best to show up as my best self in this moment, and provide as much service as great as I can, and provide as much content as I can to whoever I'm in front of, and then everything will kind of fall into place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I liked what you mentioned when you said that I kind of don't have an expectation against how it has to show up. And,
Right.
and that was not always the case for me. There are some times where I was like, okay, you should go this direction. And I start planning out thinking, okay, let me put out a perfect plan. I got to follow it to that direction.
Right.
And sometimes you really limit what beautiful opportunities and blessings can come your way because you're like, it's got to show up like this. And
Right.
I always say God can see a grander, of course, picture than you can. He can see everything all at once in the now, and you're stuck in just a small little hole you're seeing. You're not seeing the whole grand picture sometimes, and you're preventing.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're preventing this beautiful outcome by limiting yourself. So it's awesome that you say that you're able to let go of the expectation of it has to show up like X, Y, Z.
Well, exactly, and the reason I came to that is because truly, I first ever manifested, the secret and all that. I first did that when I was 14 years old, and I did it because my mom was reading a book by Wayne Dyer, and she told me about it and how you can create your reality. Change your thoughts, change your reality, I think was the book, and I thought, oh, that's cool. Let me try that. So I played around with it. And I said, I want, I was in like 7th or 8th grade or something like that. And I said, I want someone to bring me hot cocoa, and I want a sandwich, and, like little things like this. And, first period would come and no one would do anything. Second period, and then third period. And by fourth period, someone, the teacher would have extra hot cocoa, or someone would bring me half their lunch, or, these things would start to happen. And so when I got older, I really manifested, and I would manifest, meeting certain people. I mean, the author of Dr. Joe Dispenza, the author of Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, I manifested meeting him in person because I read his book, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna manifest meeting him one-on-one, and I did it. And those are amazing experiences when you really manifest things that you want. But what's cooler than that, and when you learn manifesting and you do it, it's a really cool experience. But it's just one step, because the cooler experience, or to me, the more profound experience, is going beyond that, is allowing the universe to surprise you with something that you didn't even know you wanted. There's something that you can't even imagine, the joy or the bliss or the excitement or the passion or the love that you can feel from an experience that's unknown, that you can't predict. And so that surprise experience, that letting go of control and allowing something more beautiful than your imagination can conjure show up in your life, to me, is an even more fun and enjoyable ride than trying to manifest. So that's kind of where I got to that, because I'm like, I don't even know what it is I want, but I know the universe or God, I know God knows there's something more that I want that I can't even predict with my small mind, my peripheral little vision that I have, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I had left corporate and I felt God had my back and said, okay, I got you, just go forward. I had no idea really what my passions were anymore. I had become so disconnected from my love, my passions and everything. I was just so stuck in the everyday grind of thing of just making money, and my idea that if I got to some VIP position, I'd be a happy camper.
Right.
Yeah, that I had no idea what to do next, but it was the letting go and letting God, as the saying goes, that really presented for itself, finding myself now doing what I'm doing today. My greatest passion and love is connecting with people and doing this show. But it would have not come about had I not been so steadfast that I had to show up a certain way. So
right.
Yeah. And also I might add, when you talk about manifesting, is really cool, is that the really having a belief. Like if you say, okay, I want to meet XYZ and I'm really going to focus on that. I think the thing that some people say this really doesn't work, the power of manifesting, whatever, it's really because deep down they don't have a belief it can work. What do you have to say about that?
So to me, when it comes to manifesting, it's really like you're putting yourself in that future event in this now moment. So you're like quantum entangling yourself to this future event, but you have to, like, on a subconscious level, believe you have to experience that event before it happens. So it's not just like I visualize in my mind a cool thing that I think of. But you have to change to a new level of thought and to a new level of emotion and feel so much gratitude as if that experience is happening right now in this moment, and almost as a past tense. It's almost as if I remember when I did that thing and how cool it was and how much I felt this and I felt that, and it's almost like you're remembering when it happened, but it hasn't happened yet. And so when you put yourself there, then it can really happen. But many people, like what you're saying, many people try that, but they usually just visualize, or they usually just like, oh, that would be so cool, and they daydream about it as if it's some future event. And when you project out like it's in a future event, then it never really happens. And so they don't really believe that it has happened, and they don't really manifest it, and so they don't think it works, because you have to kind of at the core of your belief experience the whole experience, from whether it's traveling to Spain, or it's meeting a specific person, or it's getting a certain thing to happen. You have to experience that on every level, mental, emotional, and physical and spiritual, as if it has already happened in your past. And when you do that, that's when it almost like it quantum entangles you to that future event, and it pulls you to it. And so that's kind of how that manifesting works. But most people don't believe it. Most people think, oh, well, that would be cool. But if it happens, then I'll have to be responsible for this, or I have to figure out how to do it. Or maybe I should buy a plane ticket to Spain just in case, the manifestation doesn't work. And they constantly go right into doubt, and they don't let the universe actually show up to do it for them. And so when they try to it's not like you can't be in control. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's really the ticker, is when you try to bring doubt into it and you try to be in control and you try to manipulate and do all that, you ruin the whole experience of manifesting. And so you have to fully experience it, let go completely, and just open arms, welcome and receive, and stay in so much gratitude for that experience as if it's already happened. And like Joe Dispenza talks about, gratitude is the greatest form of receivership. And so when you can allow that, then you're just allowing that to come to you versus trying to make it happen.
Wow. Yeah, that is so, so true. This has been such a wonderful conversation. We could go on for hours.
I know.
But I don't want I don't want us to leave without everyone finding out where they can find out more about you and your wonderful book, and let them know about your new book.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to go to is CoreyGladwell.com. It's CoreyGladwell.com. And most everything's on there. My current book, The Human Experience, is on there. My second book that's coming out is called Enlightened Entrepreneurs, How to Create Income Through Your Impact and Live a Life on Purpose. And that'll be out probably in August of this year, 2016. And it'll also be up on CoreyGladwell.com when it's released. And then I have an Enlightened Entrepreneurs Academy, and I have Limitless Masterminds, which is like self-actualization, and some courses I'll be putting on there that have launched, but I haven't released them to the public yet. So those will be on there as well. And I'd love for more people to just join me and let's all grow together.
Yay. And this is going to be wonderful, because our show together is going to air in the fall. So all your books will be up there and ready to go, and get them today. And really, I mean, because everyone has the opportunity to have a blessed life. God did not put us on this earth to just, waddle by and be miserable. We can have a fulfilled, happy existence, but it starts with gratefulness. And Corey, I want to thank you again for coming to Savvy Business Radio and sharing your gifts and wisdom today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Here's our interview with Gary Szenderski. Hi, Gary. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you today?
Fine, Christina. Thanks for having me.
I'm very happy to have you. You wrote a truly inspiring book that I had the great pleasure of getting to read, not all of it, but a good portion of stories, called Zen Zone, Reaching a State of Positive Change, which is wonderful because we need a lot more positive change in this world. But you are also a branding specialist expert. Share with the audience what prompted you to write your book.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm a branding expert, and for the last 20 or so years with my company, we've been working with brands and organizations that are going through some kind of transition, like a brand extension, line extension, new market, going public, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I've found that in those transitions, and it doesn't matter what category, it can be high technology or it can be, paving asphalt, that the people in the organizations have to navigate this change as well. And change, whether it's triggered by an organizational change and a shift in the marketplace, or whether it's triggered by our own selves or something in our lives, I found that it's not the easiest thing to take. Most people actually resist it. And so over the years, I've found that certain ways of thinking about change helps people get there. Mm-hmm. And in a sense, that's what the book's about. I've kind of downloaded a lot of those stories, or anecdotally, I've taken that information and put it into some short stories that kind of give people a little bit of inspiration, I hope, and how they can take care of changing their own lives.
And it's wonderful because I know myself, I've resisted, especially, I should say, when negative change comes into your space. You're like, icky, bring positive change. But not everything in life is positive. But I've come to realize that through some of the most darkest times in my life has then led to the most magnificent time and growth in my life. I've gathered from reading your stories that the non-resistance or allowing change to come more flowing into your life, make your life a lot better if you don't resist the change.
Yeah, you're right. And then the first thing you said, I think, is really important, that sometimes the worst things that happen to us turn out to be the best things in terms of how it impacts our psyche moving forward. But to your point, change is one of those things that if it does happen to you, you have a choice. You can let it take over and just kind of roll with it, or you can do something about it, or you can change your perspective on it. At the end of the day, you can't do much about it anyway. So in terms of changing your view on it, I think you'll find the books, lots of stories about how to kind of turn that light bulb on to light up another room. And I know it's old cliche, but when one door closes, another always opens. I really believe that. And I believe a lot of times in the concept of change, we just don't even look for the doorknob and we get stuck.
Ooh, that is so important. And I know for myself as well, when things get bad, you're just like, but this feels so comfortable. Even when you're in a bad situation, even for myself in the past, when the situation's not feeling all that grand that you're in, you'd rather not look for change because, as they say, the devil you know is more comfortable than the devil you don't know, which is a bad, icky saying. But you know what I mean, is that this, it doesn't feel great, but I'm going to stick with it because I know it. Instead of realizing if I were to not fight it, at the same time be open to opportunities and change, that vastly new things can appear in front of me. Oh, that door that I didn't see just there right in front of me had been there all along. I just need to reach for the doorknob.
No, I'd like to quote you in some of this stuff because, I think you're right. We do get comfortable with the devil we know. And, I guess a good anecdotal piece of what happens to a lot of people, say you have a problem with bad debt and you're getting bills every day in the mail and you can't pay them. I mean, that's a terrible situation to be in. And so you think about it, you wallow about it, you worry about it. And, sure enough, more bills come the next day. And I really believe that what we're thinking about tends to keep manifesting. If you wherever we are today, at ever this point in time is, whatever that demarcation is, it's basically based on everything that we've ever decided to do. And so if you want to change that, you have to start thinking some other kind of future. And the only place to change it is in the now. Granted, this is an easy thing to say. It's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but that's really the way you have to go.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's happened for me a couple of years ago. I was in a spot financially that was really difficult in my business. Things were in a slump, not going well. And I was frustrated. I was so focused, as you were saying, on the problem that I couldn't even see a possible solution or opportunity in front of me. And then I started to pray about it and said, okay, God, help me to see this in a different light, in a different perspective, because this is not healthy for me and it's not allowing me to see a new way to go about things. So I actually was praying a lot, and I got something that seemed really counterintuitive, which was to start doing live events on video in front of an audience. I'm like, oh, whoa, excuse me, don't have money right now. What are you talking about? But the way I found for myself is when I follow Spirit, or God in my case, that things materialize that are necessary when I need them, if I trust and have faith. And so I started focusing on making that a reality and not focusing on the problems. And it materialized. I was able to do what I saw in my prayer come to fruition, and an opportunity to pay my debt. So I think that's very interesting that you say that, Gary, because when you then take your focus off of the problem and put it on the solution or on other opportunities, then things start to manifest.
Well, Christina, you just touched on about a half a dozen key points in the book, right, in that one little story. And I'm not sure where to touch. I was trying to write notes as you were going, but you're going pretty fast. I think the one thing to remember, if you think of God or the universe, is a living, breathing kind of organism that always provides what we think. In fact, thoughts become things. And I'm quoting Mike Dewey from a wonderful book he wrote called Infinite Possibilities. The point of that is, if we're made in the image and likeness of God, then there's a creator in all of us. And that portion of it has the ability to basically make things happen. So in your story, I'm guessing that you had this vision to do the video live, and you probably took some action, because once you get on the phone and say, let me get the materials or the equipment that I need to do this, I believe those things will move towards you. Whatever you try to get to, it comes back. it comes closer to you. So that whole thing is just a movement, and you start a process. It doesn't always work, cause and effect directly.
Yeah.
But I believe that if you hold on to the vision, you will get there. And then the other point I wanted to make, which is something I hate to use the word preaching, but I've been talking about for years, especially in marketing. That's a hard concept to get around, is that to get where you want to go, you have to stay focused on your goal. If you start to worry about how you're going to get there, two things happen. One is every obstacle on the planet is just going to pop up in front of you, because, the hows are really difficult. And so when you start thinking about that, it makes it more difficult. And also you tend to kind of temper your vision based on what you think you can do versus what you really want to do. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times I've run into people in companies too that say, we can't do that.
Yeah.
I'd say, well, have you tried? And if you try, you'd be surprised. To your story, I'm sure the video was a huge success.
Yeah, we've had 8 wonderful videos come, 4 of them live in front of an audience, which we encompass a working event afterwards. So people got to meet not only the person we interview, but each other, and to build those powerful networking relationships right there. You don't see when a vision comes up why it might be beneficial in the long run sometimes, and that's part of the how. How is this going to work out? Why is this going to be beneficial? But going in faith and realizing that there is a total picture you might not see at the moment, but taking one step, action upon another, will start to build it, and you'll start to say, now it makes sense.
Right, exactly. Faith and its sister, hope, are great companions on any journey that you want to take, because I find that once you take hope out of the equation as well, you can always regress actually into the hole that you started from, whatever that might have been.
Yeah, and this is really interesting, because I know our very first event we ever did, I think we were in business a year, and we did a live event that was huge, and I did not have the funds at the time to rent a space in Manhattan, and everyone said, well, because this is after prayer again, that it came about that this should manifest in my business now. And I just said, okay, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm first going to announce it and walk forward like we're doing it, period. That resistance you mentioned started to show up in the way of friends, associates, and such, saying, maybe your prayer was a little off. Maybe God meant in a year or 2 from now when you're more established and have more funding. And I said, no, that's not what that's not what I got in my prayer. But what was interesting is that we did get a place that were able to give up their space to us completely for free until the event was launched, and we got the funding from the people that showed up, and then pay them. But had we not taken the steps forward and just moved and started talking to people and saying, hey, this is happening, that would have not transpired. And so sometimes, like you said, seeing the end result and the how will not always show up, but when you take steps in hope and faith, but with action, then those steps will start to manifest, those ways in which it can transpire.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'm glad to hear it was successful. I think in my case, this is my second book. The first one was Book of Zen. I had somebody that I had a lot of respect for, still do, that has won a couple of Emmys and has a show on interviewing authors on PBS. And, he's in I actually mentioned, his name is Barry Kibrick. I mentioned him in as a kind of acknowledgement. We've been working on some marketing challenges, and I shared some of these stories with him over the years. So I started it as a kind of a blog. And he said, you can put this thing between some covers and get you on the show. And all you need sometimes is, first of all, that someone say, hey, it's good enough to be in a book. That's great. But the second thing is you have some incentive and a little bit of encouragement. Man, I tell you, that can jazz anybody. I can tell you for sure, anytime you walk up to someone and say, hey, I think you can do this. I know you can. I'm right with you. They'll just light up, and they'll be able to get there, especially if that person respects you and loves you. And so we have so much of this power just hanging in our systems. And we think we just can't access it, or we run out of it, or we don't think to do it. But if you can remember that and just pass it along, you'd be surprised what happens. And just as a piece of that story, I get a lot of people that read this book and will send comments to me and say, I really believe you wrote this for me. And it's that sense of connection that only comes from actually just pushing out that appreciation and the understanding that you can actually get from wherever you are to where you want to go anytime you want.
I love that. And it's so true. I think sometimes if you pass on the encouragement and love to others and positivity, because I've seen others who tell me, hey, I've always wanted to do this, but I don't think so. The money's not right. The time's not right. The kids are not in college, whatever it might be. And I said, you know what? You might not be here tomorrow. I mean, I've learned from having wonderful friends in my life who've garnered awful diseases or crises in their life that they're stopped for crises coming in their life. But sometimes, here's the interesting, Gary, the interesting thing is that sometimes those crises fast forward things. It's like now you realize that time is limited, that I need to move on my dreams. And sometimes those can be the biggest life changers is crisis. But I find that I just say, hey, go do it. And you could be that positive change for someone, encouragement that gets them to live out their dreams. And if we all did that, imagine.
Oh, I know. And the point is that if you don't try, you just will never know. I mean, I don't know how more logical you can get. It's like, I can have the greatest dream on the planet, and if you don't do anything about it, it's just a dream. And that's not what this book's about or what life's about.
Yes. And we talked earlier, just before the interview, how one homeless guy truly inspired me. You had a wonderful starting out your book with a homeless story that just totally pulled at my heartstrings. But this guy I met in person in New York City, I thought he was a little nuts when I first met him. He was in Starbucks and he was homeless. 23 years old. He had moved to New York on a whim with his girlfriend, and they had a fight after 6 months, and she threw him into the street with nothing but the clothes on his back and his is a desktop computer. So he has this granny cart with a desktop computer in it and a couple of other items. And what he did is he was such a charmer. He had a plan. He said, you know what? I'm not going to stay homeless. I am in New York and I'm going to make it. So he charmed the people at Starbucks and said, hey, I want to make things happen here. I'm going to buy. I'm not going to just sit here and use your facility. But they said, hey, set up. As long as you're buying something, you're good. So he bought a coffee at the start of the day at 5 a.m. and a treat, and sat there, put his desktop computer together on a table, and then just started sending out a resume, networking online. And then here's the cool part. Every single person that walked into Starbucks, he would go up to and network with. Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm blah, blah, blah. This happened to me. Here's my story. Here's my skills, my assets, whatever. He got a job within a month and was off the streets. But he really, truly inspired me because I thought, we could be at our worst possible time where it just seems like there's no way out of this awful situation. But he decided to look at it from a different perspective, just like your stories, Gary, and say that, no, this is not the end. This is the beginning. And I'm going to look at this from the perspective that this is an opportunity for me to grow.
Well, it is a great story. And, here's the key point, too, is opportunity. If you don't see it as an opportunity, well, then you won't be able to get through it. I don't recommend everybody go to Starbucks. It doesn't have a place to live. But if you have that personality, you can. That was the venue he picked. But we're not all homeless. We actually have a lot of advantages. We might be down in the dumps, or maybe don't have the money that we'd like to have, or maybe a relationship just went south. I mean, there's a lot of things that impact us all the time. And we still have money in the bank. We still have a job. We have people at work that respect us. And so a lot of us have a lot more going for us than we think. And when those bad days hit, it's sometimes we just think we can't remember how many good things were already there. And that's another thing that I've tried to get into the book is you got to look around. I mean, the people in your life that mean something, just go up and tell them, hey, you're important to me. And when you need them, it's okay to ask. And in fact, they'll if they really care, they're going to like it more that you do, and they're going to be mad at you if you don't ask. So it's okay to share. It's okay to say, hey, I'm stuck. Could you give me a hand? Could you help me? And you never know what kind of catalyst that can be for greater things. Yes,
and it allows other people to be a catalyst in helping you get to your change and to your dream, because if people love you, they want to help you. They don't want to see you down and out and having any difficulty you might imagine. A friend of mine, close friend, she just announced to everyone that she is free and clear of cancer. And I didn't even know she had cancer. She hid it from everyone. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm glad to hear you're now healthy, and I didn't know you were not healthy, but why did you hide it from everyone? We could have helped and been a great support, all of your friends, to help you get through this. You don't have to do it alone. You can do it with your friends and family. We're all here. We can all help each other move forward.
You're absolutely right. And a true story here on my end, I used to play in this basketball league and for many, many years, and we're all kind of buddies, and one of the guys moved to Virginia, and he came down with cancer. And three of us from the old days playing ball decided to go visit him. And we talked to his wife before, and they purposely let him skip a chemo session so we could put some weight back on and feel a little bit better. And sure enough, he did, and it was great to see him. And we visited for a few days, and looking forward to his full recovery. And, I think we had an impact. He's been on a positive roll since then, and his cancer is shrinking. And so we're all got our fingers crossed and praying that, he'll be able to come and out and visit us here in California, and because we miss him. And Doug, if you're listening, I love you, buddy.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true because and this is something I got from a wonderful book I read called Cancer is a Turning Point back in my 20s. And it was a psychotherapist who would go to terminally ill cancer patients and just talk to them. And he found the one thing missing from most of their lives was that they never lived their dream. They had this unrequited kind of dream in their heart that they've never experienced. They never fully brought it to fruition. And he started just talking to them about it, just bringing it out of their psyche and having them look at it. Well, what could you do to somehow bring that dream about? And in the cases of 90% of the patients, they actually started to make positive change. Did all of them get better and fully recover from cancer? Maybe not. But a good portion of them lived a lot longer than doctors had anticipated because they had a reason to live. And so that was really awesome.
To that point, a lot of times I think many people don't know exactly what they want or are afraid to articulate it or believe they don't deserve it. And so those kinds of goals and extraordinary visions don't really happen. And so one of the tools I use or a suggestion I make is to sit down and write down your perfect day. Yeah. Just like where you wake up, who you wake up with, what you see out the window, what are you smelling, is the coffee brewing, who's on the phone, just like what would be a absolutely perfect day for you. And just put that down on paper and start to think about how you're going to feel in that perfect day. And that feeling is the thing that you need to capture because that's going to be the thing that'll catalyze that vision. And then you got to kind of reverse engineer. Say, okay, that's what I want to be. I know I'm capable of being there. I've got everything I need to get there. So let's start taking some action and taking even the smallest little baby step. You never know how fast you can move and get someplace.
You mentioned something very interesting. You said being. How can I have everything I need to get to that place of being. And my one friend always said, we're such human doings these days. We're not human beings, we're doings. And I think we get stuck on that. I mean, I've heard people say that, if I had $1 million or if I traveled the world. But when I read this book a long time ago called, all right, I forgot the name at the moment. But basically, it was telling you to write your perfect day as well, but with no bars. Really write it out. There is nothing that could stop you from living your absolute dream. What would it look like? And then the second part of the exercise was, what elements of that perfect life do you already have in your life that you don't even pay attention to? So here's that becoming aware and present to the gifts you already have, the parts of being that you're already living that you're not paying attention to. And then what parts do you actually need in order to feel like a full human being in your everyday life? And what parts can you get rid of that are not serving you?
Well, I like the idea of being. For one thing, back to my earlier comment about we are the results of everything we've thought up to this point. Mm-hmm. And being is to me, simply, being present. Mm-hmm. And when you're doing, you're basically moving through time, trying to get to a goal. Mm-hmm. But when you're being, you're actually, involved in what's going on around you. And actually, that's the most fertile ground for changing the future. In fact, it's the only place you can. You can't change the past. We all don't have magic wands. But if you want to get to where you want to be and be what you want to be, you start to act like that and just put that in motion. And just that projection alone, I always like to say, image is destiny. You start to project who you are and that new future being, you'll actually start to grow into it.
Wow. I love that, Gary, because my mentor years ago when I first started my business said, you don't have to wait to get to the ultimate, whatever picture success you have in your mind is. You have to be that person before you get there. So you don't wait, hey, I've got whatever it is your ultimate goal is or your ultimate desire in your life is, whatever that looks like. You don't wait to be that person when you get there, because you won't. You have to be that person today in order to reach that vision.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, it has lots of implications in marketing and branding. You know, we talk about companies that want to go through some kind of transition. We talk about what it'll look like on the other end.
Yeah.
And then start to act that way. And we all have our own personas. I mean, I'm a writer, but I also teach at a university, and I have a consulting company. And so depending on the day, I wake up feeling, okay, who am I going to be today and what am I going to do? And just projecting that feeling that you have, you actually become that. And surprisingly, everybody will reflect back to you what you're projecting out. So it works to kind of actually catalyze even more of the same kind of feelings and actions.
Yeah, it's amazing the circle that it completes. That I don't think we realize that when whatever you put out there, it comes back to you and it kind of just circulates. And this is interesting. Many years ago, I had walked out of the house with a super funky mood, and everything around me was funky. I mean, people were hollering in the train. It's just funky, funky, funky attitudes all around me. And then I think midday, I became aware of my funky attitude and said, enough is enough. I'm going to change my attitude. I'm choosing to be positive. And it was interesting. The rest of that day was phenomenal. All this wonderful, unexpected, positive stuff came into my space. And I thought, how interesting that it was just a shift in perspective that allowed me to probably see what was already in front of me, but now become more aware of it.
Well, you know, that's an amazing piece. That's a good story, because we do have that ability. All of us, we sometimes, to your earlier point, we like to wallow in some of the bad and sad because that's a comfort place. But if you find yourself in a funk, that's good that you're actually able to identify that and shifting how you think. I mean, we have a lot of power in our minds to actually move. And you think about our imaginations and our dreams and, you know, how many things get in there. If you have all these choices, pick the one that's going to make you feel best. And be that, go for that, and do that, and you can come out of any funk. Again, this is all easy to say, not really easy to do. And I'll refer to my book. That's why there's so many different stories in here. It's not a linear progression of a beginning, the middle, and an end kind of book. It's pick it up anywhere you want, and you can find something that can reinforce your decision for that particular change. Yeah. And it works, and just need a lot of reinforcement to keep getting the right messages.
Yeah, and that's what I found for myself. I read your type of books and those self-help or motivational all the time because I want to keep my mind focused on that perspective. And as you said, you know, things can be kind of icky sometimes in your life, and you can get stuck in wallowing in that ickiness, or you can have books and wonderful lectures and other things to help keep your mind focused on the positive. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we have choices. That's the key to all change, is you have a choice.
Absolutely. And what have you garnered through all of the writing and through all of your experiences been the greatest lesson you've learned as far as change goes?
Oh man, there's so many positive things. I think the one thing, it's kind of what we talked about earlier, is that change is a function of how we look at it. You know, things are going to happen anyway, or we can make things happen if we choose. But whatever that is, somewhere in the middle of it, in the midst of all of that transition and at the crux of our life, is the fact that we have a choice. And so how we look at it is the most important thing. This could be a gift, and I'll learn, and I'll quote Nelson Mandela on this. He says, I always win. He said, I never lose. Either I win or I learn. And I think that's a great way to live your life. And he encapsulates pretty much the way I feel. My perspective on life is that there's always a way to win. And what I teach and what I sell and what I preach and write about is how to have a positive impact, not just for the people that are reading it, but how we can actually help other people and give and provide them the kind of encouragement that they need to be successful as well. So what I've learned is that there is a chain, there is a connection, there is a universe that everyone talks to. And if you believe in quantum mechanics, you know that we're just a wiggle in that whole plane of things that happen. And anything you do has the power to change anything else. And it's not my law, it's God's law. And if you think about it and use it, great things can happen to you.
Awesome. Well, this has been so wonderful having you share your gifts and wisdom today on Savvy Business Radio. Let everyone know where they can find out more about you, get your wonderful book, Zen Zone, Reaching a State of Positive Change.
Right, thank you. And you can go to my website, which is ZenZone, S-Z-E-N zone.com. You can also find that on Amazon. If you pick it up, I'd love to have you write a review, assuming that you like it. And you can email me directly if you have a question or question or want to just chat. Sometimes it's Gary at Book of Zen, B-O-O-K of Zen, S-Z-E-N.com. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. You've been such a generous soul today, sharing with our audience all your gifts and wisdom. I want to thank you again, Gary, for coming to Savvy Business Radio.
Thank you, Christina. My pleasure. Thank you.
SavvyBusinessRadio.com, home to over 500,000 global listeners via our podcast and AM/FM platforms. We help business owners connect to successful individuals who share their gifts with the world. Get your message out in a bigger way with Savvy's live, professionally recorded shows. Find out more at SavvyBusinessRadio.com.